If you're looking to improve your speed out on the pitch, your agility, your ability to accelerate into the ruck, and be able to play all 80 minutes, I want to be sharing with you the major things that you should be focusing on during your speed training in order to make this happen. What's up, I'm Nick and I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach and a rugby player myself. I play flanker. So I know the demands of your sport and I know what it takes. And with rugby, it's a little bit different, especially in terms of conditioning of what we need our legs to be able to do. Now, with any speed training, there are some major core concepts that we need to have locked down that are gonna help any field sport athlete. So if you're lacrosse, football, whatever, these are all gonna help you as well, okay? The major areas we really need to lock down are acceleration and top speed. So those are two very different running mechanics, and the amount of force and power production that comes from those that we need to lock down. The next is really our agility and change of direction, okay? Being able to cut laterally side to side, put yourself in better positions to make a tackle or get to a ruck or be in the right position so you can actually make a play. And the next one is the conditioning factor, because you can be the fastest, strongest, most powerful athlete, but if you're gassed out on the pitch or on the field, your speed, strength, agility, all that goes to the wayside, and you're just sitting there with your arms over your knees and you're just huffing and puffing, right? So with rugby, it's continuous. It's always going. So we're gonna get into some specific exercises and some specific conditioning tools later in this video that I think can really help you with that and helped me as I was going through and getting ready for my season. So with acceleration, it is gonna be more power dominant, okay? It's how much force you can apply into the ground, how quickly you can apply it, and it's gonna be a lot more muscular driven, meaning that a lot of the speed and stride length that you're gonna be getting is driven from how much force you can put into the ground from your muscles. With acceleration too, a big area that I see happen with a lot of our athletes who accelerate very poorly is that they don't have the strength or stability to maintain proper angles coming out of a stance or getting going, okay? So when we're in acceleration, our focus is to try to apply as much horizontal force and as much horizontal power as possible. So we need appropriate shin angles and matching torso angles. Versus top speed, we're more vertical. So think horizontal, I want my shin angles at about a 45, and I'm gradually increasing that angle into top speed. Whereas top speed, it's gonna be more vertical in nature, and with top speed, it's gonna be more elastic in nature, more fluid in nature. So you're getting a greater contribution of force in that speed coming from your tendons. It's less muscular driven into the ground. With change of direction, there's a lot of nuance in this area, but it really comes down to your ability to accelerate and deaccelerate, right? To absorb force and transition out of it. And there are a lot of factors that play into this, such as body positioning, head positioning, foot positioning, where your center of mass is at, that will really allow you to get in and out of a cut quickly. One thing that I can give to all of you right now is that one of the biggest issues I see with cutting is that they try to either cut off their inside foot or their outside plant foot is behind their lead leg, meaning that they don't have their foot out in front, and when that foot's not out in front, it can't handle and load as much force and redirect that force. Plus, when you go to pivot and turn, you're having to cross and clear your own hips. If we have that foot out in front, whether it's a full side-to-side cut or it's more of a speed cut, that foot out in front is going to allow for better hip positioning, so you don't have to clear your own hips, which should shave off a couple of tenths of a second with your transition time. And it's during that transition time that's going to really allow you to make up a lot of yardage or space within that. Because I'm not the fastest top speed athlete, but I have good agility and change of direction, whereas an athlete, it may take them half a second to break, pause, and get out, where I have a little bit better with that, so I can get in and out in about 0.3. Okay, and roughly equating around 0.3 to 0.5 meters a second in top speed is gonna be anywhere from 3 to 5 yards. So with timeline, it may not seem like a lot, but out on the field, those tenths of a second matter a lot, because it's gonna be the difference between you making a tackle or making a play and not. The last piece is the conditioning piece. So with any sport, but specifically rugby, there's going to be a lot of times where it is high levels of effort, high levels over and over and over and over. You're going, you're making a tackle, you're getting up, right? You're going to the next place, getting back in position, having to make another tackle, getting back up. Then you got a scrum, you're going back, like it's constant effort of bouts of high intensity effort. and then about 50-60% getting back into position. So when we're thinking about the conditioning drills that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, we want to make sure that we're targeting those energy systems. So we have 3 energy systems in our body. I'm going to go over it real quickly. The first one is our creatine phosphate. It's 0 to 10 seconds, 100% effort. Think 100-meter sprint, max power clean, right? Everything you got. It's about 10 to 15 seconds tops. The next one where a lot of our athletes are going to be at is our glycolytic system. Okay, so this runs up to about 2 minutes, maybe a little bit more, but it's still super high intensity, around 80 to 90%. Okay, and the last one is our aerobic or beta oxidation. Think of like the marathon runner, 50 to 60%. You're kind of cruising the entire time. With rugby, you're going to need a lot of these because your game is constantly going, right? There's a few times with like lineouts and things like that where you get to catch a little break or halftime, but it's not that much of a break anyways. So you're going to need to get really good at improving your capacity of those energy systems, but mainly the repeat power ability of those first 2. Okay, so repeat power ability just means that you're able to go high levels of effort and intensity and speed, recover quickly, which then you'll be in that 3rd energy system as your like recovery, and then go again without it significantly dropping off. Rarely a few times where we are just doing consistent cruising effort in a rugby match where it's like 50-60%, or it shouldn't be, and if you are, you need to pick your shit up out in the game because you're probably not making a huge difference. But I know sometimes the wings out there are just standing around just like waiting for a ball. I get it. But if you're in the middle of it and you're making tackles, you're getting ready for plays, you're supporting the ruck, like you gotta be going with quick bouts of recovery and then going again. So let's get into actually the 5 exercises that are gonna correlate with some of these different areas to help you improve your overall speed. So the first one, and I think every athlete needs to do this, the fastest way to get faster for 90% of our athletes, you know, like the elite track sprinters and stuff like that, like there may be some other things that you need to work on just because you're more advanced. But for most people, we need to improve their acceleration first. Acceleration is usually the lowest hanging fruit besides running mechanics, but we're not going to do a video about that right now. The lowest hanging fruit to get you faster, right? If you're looking to shave 2-3 tenths off your 40, improve your acceleration, right? Like just get faster out of the start. The most effective exercise that we've ran with a lot of our athletes, and I consistently have, is a resisted sled sprint. Okay, so the resisted sled sprint, specifically where you're pulling a sled behind you, is freaking awesome because what it allows you to do, one, the rope or the belt that's attached to you, it's going to make you feel a little bit more comfortable in that leaned over position, that more horizontal position, so you can produce force a little bit more effectively. That better positioning is going to also improve some of your technique because it's going to allow your foot to hit in line or behind your hip, which we call a negative step. With acceleration, the negative step is super important because now instead of that foot landing in front of your hip where there's a braking force and then your body weight has to travel over your foot to then begin re-accelerating, now it's just accelerate, 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 accelerate. So cleaning that up and mastering the negative step with your acceleration, which you do get some practice with the sled sprint, is super important. The other aspect of a sled sprint is it allows you to really work the power output of your lower body. So when you add that load on, so naturally sprinting is a very, very high velocity based movement. Really tough to replicate it out like in the gym, right? Like doing plyos or jumps or any of that stuff. But when we can use a sled and we put about a 50% velocity decrement, meaning that say it took you 2 seconds to run a 10-yard or 10-meter sprint. Now you're finding a weight in which it doubles your time or gives you a 50% velocity decrement. So you're gonna find a load and find a weight that now that same 10-yard sprint takes you 4 seconds. Okay, so this is gonna maximize the power output because it's force times velocity. So we're gonna add a little bit more force to the side of the equation by adding some weight and adding some load, but the velocity is still gonna be very, very high to give us our max power output. And over time, doing this consistently, you're gonna improve your power output, your rate of force development, you're gonna improve your running mechanics, and you're gonna be able to accelerate a lot faster. So one of the methods we use in the peak performance program, it's a little more advanced. I definitely would recommend just getting out, doing 50% velocity decrement with your sled sprints running 10 to 15 yards, and then just trying to improve your speed or the times that you get, and then eventually add 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds, whatever you need to, retest every few weeks and continue the process again. Once you've gone through that and you need a little bit extra, what I really like to do, and we use more in our second and third phase of training with like our strength training and stuff, but for speed specifically, we'll do a contrast set using the resisted sled sprints at that 50% velocity decrement. So we'll do a resisted sled sprint, 50% velocity decrement for 10 to 15 yards. Then we'll take a 2-minute rest, and then we'll go in and we'll do a normal sprint unresisted. Okay, so we get about 2 benefits from this. One, we get to take advantage of something called post-activation potentiation. So that's anytime you have a heavier load on your body and your body's required to produce more force at a faster rate, you're kind of priming your central nervous system to produce a lot of force really, really quickly. So we get to take advantage of that. So when we go into the unresisted sprint, our body is already primed to put that much force into the ground at that speeds. Now we have less load, we're moving faster. The benefit of that is now it teaches your central nervous system how to do that on its own without load. And it does take time, but it does help over the long run. You're gonna find if you do this, say you don't run a normal sprint, then you go and do a contrast set and you retime after that post-activation potentiation, you're gonna shave maybe a 10th, 1.15 off your time. Now you're teaching your body, like, this is how fast I'm gonna move. Typically we'll do 3, 4 sets, maybe 5, 6, just depending on what the intention is for that day. But that is a really, really great one for you to use, and it's where I'd recommend everyone spend the most of their time at right now. For the top speed component, a very simple drill is a fly sprint. So all a fly sprint is that you're kind of taking away the acceleration, like demands of the acceleration away from it, and you're purely focusing on top speed. And there's a certain duration or a given duration where you're trying to hold and maintain your maximal top speed. So essentially what you do is you could have anywhere from like a 15, 20, sometimes even 10 gradual build up to top speed, and then you're sprinting at maximal velocity for the given duration. So I like to do fly sprints anywhere from 10 all the way up to 30 meters or 30 yards. Typically I'll start with 10 yards and then gradually progress it out as we get more and more developed throughout our training. But this is a great way for you to hit those maximal velocities, to tell your central nervous system, to give your body the stimulus to, like, hey, we need to improve our top miles per hour or our top speed, and then we recover from it. With top speed training, you do need to rest adequately. So if you're going like every minute, every 30 seconds, the fatigue that you're gonna accumulate, and it may not seem like a lot, but with top speed training, you need to be at about 95% of your best time or faster. Okay, so if you drop off and 5% off of a 2-meter sprint or a 2-second sprint is only like 0.2, right? So we need to be 5, so you need to be at like 0.5 of that. 0.05 is what I should say, or 0.1 with that, so it's not a lot. So if you're not resting enough and you're not hitting those times, now while you're still getting work, you're essentially just either working technique, hopefully, or you're just conditioning yourself in a not a very effective manner. So you need to be resting 3, 4, 5 minutes with your top speed training. The next one is lateral quickness, lateral change of agility. And there's a few different variations of this that I really like. Some simple ones are just shuffle reactions where you are either reacting off a coach or you're reacting off of cones, where you're shuffling back side to side to side, and then eventually I like to take it into a sprint. Once you get more developed with that, you can start to add in different types of movement where you can do a shuffle to a karaoke, to a sprint, to a back pedal, where you're changing it up a little bit just to give a little bit more chaos to the actual nature of the drill, which is gonna replicate a little bit more of what happens out on the field, because you're never just shuffling back and forth left to right. Like sometimes you're stepping over bodies, having to do different things to get back into position. So gradually increasing the amount of variations of type of lateral movements that you're doing is gonna help with that overall. The next one, if you're purely working on some change of direction, lateral quickness, I personally love the 5-10-5. I use it a lot within football. It really forces a clean cutting mechanics and for you to accelerate and transition very effectively. So simply you start in the middle, sprint 5 yards to the side, touch, back 10, and then back 5. Okay, you can add in other variations of this as well, like before. We can do crossover, shuffles, various things of that nature. One of the best ones that I personally like, the next one, is doing some sort of mirror or reactive type drills. So with agility training, change of direction is kind of predetermined, pre-planned with cones, right? And you know exactly where you're going. It's pre-planned. You can kind of get ready to make that cut. In sports and in games, you're reacting to your environment. That is always a chaotic environment. Nothing's ever the same. So if you have a partner, a great one you can do is a mirror reaction drill where someone is the lead and someone is reacting based off of them, and you're trying to mirror them as much as you can and stay on their hip as quick as they can. With progressing these, again, I like to keep it very simple in the beginning. You can just do straight sprints, changing direction back and forth. You can do shuffles, you can do crossovers or karaoke, right, back pedal. And then to add a layer of difficulty, you can then let the lead do whatever they want, right? So once you've gone through that, then they can sprint into a shuffle, they can sprint into a back pedal, into another shuffle, into a karaoke, right? So you're having that reaction person has to react and then mimic, so their central nervous system and decision-making process is firing a lot quicker for them to actually get some true agility training. If you don't have a partner or a coach to help you with that, it is a little limited. You can get a little bit creative. You might have to pre-plan some of this stuff out where you can simply record yourself saying shuffle, backpedal, sprint, right, and play it while you're out there to help with it. I know not many people will do that, but it is a workaround that you can use for that. So we covered resisted sled sprints, different agility drills to help with lateral quickness, some reaction drills for lateral quickness, and then some fly sprints for top speed. The next one is going to get into the conditioning aspect. I've played football, I've played baseball, I've wrestled, I've played every sport around there, and there is nothing quite like the conditioning that is required for rugby. Especially I'm a forward, so there's a lot of times where you're having to put it out large amounts of muscular force and strength, and then be required to then get up and sprint when your legs are absolutely gassed and the lactic acid is just burning inside of them. So one that I've used in the past, and I'll tell you right now, it sucks, it is not fun, is doing a heavier sled sprint for about 20 to 30 yards, taking it off, and then sprinting double the duration. Okay, so you'll do a heavy sled sprint, say across the field, take it off, sprint back, and then it's a light jog back. Typically, I'm trying to work in the like 3-to-1 to 5-to-1 work to rest ratio. So if it took me 20 seconds to do the entire movement, then I'm taking 60 up to, what would that be, like 140 seconds of rest with that, and I'm rinsing and repeating for a couple of sets. There are a couple other ones you can do that we have inside of our program. A 10x10 shuttle is a really great one. It's simply 10 yards, you're going back and down, touching those cones for 10 times as fast as you can. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, taking about a minute, 2-minute rest, rinsing and repeating. And there's another one called a pyramid sprint, which is absolutely, it's like a suicide on steroids. It's a little bit like a Bronco with some different variations in there. Kind of a progress to maybe a Bronco where you set up cones at 25, 50, 75, and 100 meters. So you sprint down, jog back, sprint to the next cone, jog back, sprint to the next one, jog back, sprint all the way down, jog back, and then you reverse the order coming on the way back. So those are some exercises. I know there's more than 5 that I gave you there, so hopefully you can implement some of these with yourself. When you are getting into, like, how do you add speed training into your programming already? Because I'm sure some of you are at the gym and you're doing some things. How do you make it all work, right? How do you do strength, power work, and speed work? So the simplest thing that I can say to help you, I would recommend that you're at least doing 1 times a week, preferred 2 to 3 times a week, and that if you do need to double up, you are doing your sprinting, acceleration, and speed work prior to your lifting. And the reason for this is because, again, back to top speed and power work, we have to be as fresh and recovered as we absolutely can. So if we went and say hit like a heavy leg day and then went immediately and tried to go sprint, our CNS is going to be a little bit fried, our muscles are going to be a little bit fatigued, so we wouldn't be able to hit those speeds as if we were not like completely fresh, right? And we need to be at that like 95 to 100% best times in order to give our body the stimulus to get faster. So I would recommend, if you have to, do it before. If not, I would do it on a separate day as well. Typically, I prioritize a top speed day prior to any sort of lifting in the week. You can, if you need to, put like an upper body day before, which is what we're having to do right now in our program during a foundational phase, where we're trying to build a lot of muscle but maintain or get a little bit faster. That's what I'd recommend. You could have your acceleration agility conditioning days on another day. But if you're going to do it all at once, and this is kind of what I want to say, how do you order things for yourself to make it the most effective and you're getting the most out of it, is that you're going to do a dynamic warm up. Make sure you really warm up, because again, if you're not warm, you're not ready to go, you're not going to be running your fastest times, and we're going to be wasting some time. So make sure you really get a good 5, 10, maybe even up to 15-minute dynamic warm up. You can rest a little bit after that. And then you're going to prioritize your top speed if you have top speed training on that day. Okay. With top speed, you can do a little bit of power work prior to that, just to, again, prime your central nervous system. So if you wanted to do some bounds, you wanted to do a couple of like broad jumps or some more plyometrics, just keep the volume really low, sets 1 to 2 sets, adequate rest, then you can go into your top speed. But typically I'll do top speed first, and then I'll get into acceleration and power work, and you can pair those together, again, because the acceleration is going to be more power dominant, coming like a muscular driven power dominant, so they pair really nicely together. And then I would go into agility if you can. Sometimes I don't even put agility in there, but I may put, if it's like a heavy acceleration or a heavy top speed day, the type of agility training that I would do would be more like technical, more footwork type drill, less demanding. If it's a little bit less on the top speed acceleration focus, more focus on the agility, then I would start to hit those a little bit harder, a little bit less rest times. The agility drills, I'd be going full go. And then the last thing you can do is you can add at the end is your conditioning. Okay, so if you want to get it all done in one day, do your conditioning at the end, because with conditioning, you're just trying to improve the cell's ability to cycle energy, right? So ATP. So if you're already in a kind of fatigue state and you do conditioning, you're just essentially like enhancing that process. So you don't need to be fresh for conditioning. You can be kind of feeling it and still get it really good conditioning and work out of that. So this is rugby training with an emphasis on speed. If you like this video, please make sure that you subscribe, like, and I will see you in the next video.